Hey guys, welcome back to another Walrus video. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to play Fizz in the jungle. Now, as you guys know, Fizz has recently been buffed for its passive to deal like more damage against the jungle camps monsters, so he's really strong in the jungle now. If you want to win more games, be sure to play it more because Fizz is actually pretty fun to play in the jungle. Although his jungle clearing camps, like, it's a little bit slow, but yeah, it's still, you know, relatively decent. He's still pretty strong when it comes to gank because he has its ult that could slow the enemy permanently until the fish pops. So as you can see now, I'm clearing the raptors first because it has been warded there and no one helped me in the jungle for now, so I don't want to risk to fight the red buff first. Because when Fizz starts with red buff, it gets really risky. It literally got Fizz down to like around 10% health, so if you got ganked by the enemy jungle, you could die anytime, so it's not worth it to do the red first. You could go for the raptors first if you want to. And then we're gonna go straight into the wolf, get the blue, and then we'll head into the river. Looks like Lee Sin is in the top lane, so I think he might be trying to take my skull crab in the river. We will contest for that. If I could contest it, I could get to level 5. If I couldn't get it, then I might have to stay around level 4 for a while. So, when should you gank? With Fizz, I think you don't really need your ult in the early game because Fizz has so many like movement abilities, his first ability and his third abilities. Now looks like Lee Sin is actually going to go for the skull crab. I don't have too much HP left, and you know, in early game blue buff doesn't really heal much, so I don't have my smite as well, so I don't think I can contest that yet. So I'm gonna have to stay around like level 4 for a while. So when you're playing Fizz, I think a lot of people will be confused like in terms of which abilities they should prioritize. Like, should you max E first or should you max W first? Because both do a lot of damage against the camps as well. It's really up to you. Like, if you want to use W more often, you could use it because you could utilize Fizz last hit to clear the jungle camps faster, or you could max E because E deals a lot of AoE damage as well, so it's really up to your playstyle. So as you can see here, I'm baiting. This is usually what I do. When I finish my jungle camps, I would always go to the top lane. I would either go into the lane, hide in the bush, or I would go the river path. It's really up to you, whichever works. So now you can see we haven't hit level 5 first, so it's really hard to gank right now because most of them are already level 5. You can see Diana, she's already level 5 as well, so now if you don't have ult, it's really hard to gank. So when you gank with Fizz, how do you gank with Fizz? It's super easy, but really tricky. A lot of people think that once you pop your ult, as soon as it hits the enemy, you can just rush into the enemy and one-shot them. You could do that in the late game, but definitely not in the early game. Because in the early game, Fizz doesn't do as much damage as it does in the mid game or in the late game. Usually in the mid game or in the late game, one combo, use your ult, use your E, or third ability, gap close, getting close to the enemy, use your W and auto attack, and then finish it with a first ability. That's usually how you do with Fizz, one shot combo. But that only works in mid to late game. That is when you have more than 2 to 3 items, so you can do one shot. Oh, nice kill. But in the early game, especially around like level 5, level 6, early ganks, don't rush out, like try to put your ult and just instantly got to kill the enemy because it's really risky. Once you miss your ult, you're not gonna get the enemy. So what I would prefer here is, if the enemy is super close to your turret, you could walk onto them and then throw your abilities on them. Walk onto them, use your second ability, auto attack them. If they try to run away, you still have your first ability and your third ability. Remember, both of those abilities are movement abilities, so if they're trying to get away, you can use your E or third ability, hop onto them, auto attack them with your remaining W cooldown. Or if they're trying to get away again, you could use your Q again to get close to them to make sure that's a confirmed kill. And of course, when you're ganking a lane, there should be your teammates helping you. So if your teammates have stuns, then it'll make your gank so much easier. Let's say like our top lane, we have Malphite. Maybe not, we have Irelia. Irelia can use her second ability to stun the enemy, so it would make it so much easier for you to gank a lane. If you're ganking a lane that has like no stun abilities or no CC abilities, it would be so much harder to try to get the enemy. So try to gank the lanes that have like crowd control abilities. So what lane would I usually recommend you to gank? The first lane is always the AD carry lane, because you would always have a support in the bot lane, and the support would always have a crowd control ability. So chances are you could always get into a 3v2 situation if the enemy jungler isn't nearby, and if it works, you can get 2 kills instead of 1 kills. Now for top lane and mid lane, it depends on you. If your mid lane doesn't have crowd control abilities, it's really hard to catch an opponent. What if the enemy mid laner is a Zed? Like, it's literally impossible to catch him because he can use his ult to get away from every ability. So in this situation, you shouldn't really gank champions that could get away easily, and when your teammates doesn't have like crowd control abilities, you should always go for whichever the lanes that have crowd control abilities. Like maybe if your mid lane is like a Twisted Fate or something, then you could go for a gank, because Twisted Fate have a lot of CC. His card have low cooldown and long stun duration, so it's really up to you. Depends on which champions your allies are playing and which champions the enemy is playing. Alright, now we're getting to Dragon and Rift Herald. Basically objectives control. Which dragon should you prioritize? Which dragon should you like fight for it, try to steal it if the enemy is starting a dragon? And which dragon should you give up? Now, we all know Infernal Dragon is the most important one. You should always try to steal it or fight for it no matter what, even if you know you're gonna lose. Just in case, what if you just, you're super lucky and you got that smite? You never know, so always fight for Infernal Dragon. The second and third most important one, I would say it's pretty much like Ocean Drake, because it provides a lot of like lifesteal, so you could heal up in the lane. And the third one, I would say it's a Cloud Drake, increasing movement speed. Now don't underestimate movement speed, alright? A lot of people think that, oh, maybe, Mountain Drake provides an extra shield, it's so much better than Cloud Drake. That's not what I think. Let's say if you're running away from an enemy with 1 HP. When you're out of combat more than 5 seconds, you have increased movement speed. Or when you're as a jungle trying to gank, you're not in combat, you're trying to get to your lane as soon as possible, you gain extra movement speed. That is why extra movement speed is so much more important than just like the tiny bit of shield. That tiny little bit of shield, yeah, it's really good against, poke champions, so you don't get like, poke damage by them, but it's not that important. That's why I would always say, like, if there is a Mountain Drake fighting, like, if the enemy is starting a Mountain Drake and you and your team can't seem to get the dragon, I would say just give it up. Don't even try, because it's just not worth it. You should always try to steal if it's an Inferno, and when it's a Ocean Drake or Cloud Drake, you should consider, should you fight? If you fight, will your team win? Look at the scoreboard. If your team isn't doing well, don't go for it, it's not worth it, just give it to them. But if your team is doing well, you think if you guys engage in a team fight, you could actually win and get the dragon, then go for it. And now I would talk about Rift Herald. Rift Herald is kind of in the middle of Baron, Baron, we should always try to steal Baron, because if enemy got the Baron buff, it's really hard to push back. But Rift Herald, it's kind of in a special case, like when should you or when should you not take it? I would say, if you have the chance to get the Rift Herald, always go for it, like, no problem, no questions asked, just go for it. But if you really don't have time, you're trying to gank lanes, you're trying to farm, you just don't have time to fight your Rift Herald and enemy ends up getting it, don't mind, like, it's not a big deal. But what is a big deal is when your team is not doing well at all. Like, if the enemy has already like destroyed your first turret or your first and second turret and the team hasn't got a turret yet, that is when Rift Herald plays an important part. Because now that the enemy has like 1 or 2 extra gold from turret destroyed, they actually have economic and gold advantage against all of your team, because those are like team group goal, you know. Once a turret is destroyed, it's separated into like 150 gold, separated equally again to all the team that destroyed the turret. So if you don't have that extra 150 or 300 gold, added together for 5 people, it's pretty much like a huge difference. 1500, they would get an item faster or sooner than you guys, and they could actually win a team fight. If you guys try to fight a team fight, it would have like such a huge difference. So if you don't have, if your guys are losing, you guys are not doing well, you didn't get any turrets and enemy has already destroyed 1 or 2 turrets, that is when you should actually go fight for a Rift Herald, because Rift Herald could help to push 1 extra turret, so you would get extra gold for the whole team to, you know, kind of shrink the gap between you and the enemy team. Baron, yeah, I already talked about that. So what should you build on Fizz? This is really interesting because Fizz is kind of in like a awkward position. First item, we all know what it is, Lich Bane. Unless you're trying to go for a semi-tank Fizz, you could actually go for the tank build, which is like a, it's almost like a purple staff. I forgot what it's called, but I would always go for the aggressive style. So I would actually go for Lich Bane first because it deals a lot of damage. Fizz is a mage, but he's an assassin as well. He's not just like throwing all his abilities. His auto attack deals a lot of damage as well, especially against turret when you have certain items. So Lich Bane, that's what I recommend for the first item. Second item, I would go for the Rabadon's stat cap. Rabadon's early game, it's really good for Fizz because Fizz lack the enough AP to actually one-shot enemies. So the sooner you can build a Rabadon's death cap, the sooner you could one-shot an enemy, like a squishy targets. The third items, I would recommend you to go, of course, boots. You can't do anything if you don't have movement speed. I can't tell you like how much times I've tried to catch up to an enemy. I bought 3 items, I have more than enough damage to kill him, but I just couldn't get to him. I don't have my flash is in cooldown, I don't have my smite as well, I can't slow him, but I'm not catching up to him because he have a boots and I don't have a boots. That is why boots is so important for level 3. You could upgrade it if you have extra gold that you think you can use, but if you don't have extra gold for that, you could actually just go for like a normal boost. It actually increases movement speed and anything. But if you have extra gold, I would recommend you to go for the lucidity boost, which reduces your cooldown, because Fizz relies a lot of it on his ult as well, because his ult has such a little cooldown when it's in like maximum level. So if you have the lucidity boost as well, you can actually shrink the cooldown so you could use your ult more often. So as soon as you finish using one ult, you one-shot an enemy, the team fight is over, the next time you fight a team fight again, your ult is up again. So you might use like your ult twice in a team fight if they're dragging it out. That is why I recommend you to go for lucidity boots. But if the enemy have a lot of crowd control, like 5 of their characters that they pick have somewhat crowd control abilities, then I would prefer you to go for a MR boots, which is like a Mercs, yeah, it's called Mercs, which is the Mercury boots. It actually reduces, or maybe give you tenacity, you know, reduces the length of the crowd control. Let's say if a lister knocks up 1 second, if you have the lucidity boots, you would actually get knocked up by him, and it's only gonna be around like 7.5 seconds, you know. Basically that's what I mean. It will reduce the amount of length that you got CC. So you could actually go for that option if they have a lot of crowd control. The fourth item, of course, I would say You could either go for a Moralican or you could go for an Infinity Orb. If the enemy has a lot of like healing champions like Mundo, Garen, Fiora, a lot of lifesteal as well, you could actually go for a Moralican to reduce their healing. So they can't just keep healing themselves to sustain in the fight to drag it out. Fizz is a one-shot champion, so you should not drag out when you're fighting an enemy. If they don't have a lot of healing champions, you could just go for a Infinity Orb. Now Infinity Orb is really good for last shot, last hit, because when they're below a certain amount of HP, you start doing crits. But there is another use for Infinity Orb as well, especially on Fizz. You should try it. Like when you're trying to destroy a turret, just go for it. If you had an Infinity Orb, you could actually demolish a turret in like 3 or 2 seconds. Full HP to nothing with Fizz. When you're in the mid game or the late game, you have like more than 4 items. With 1 W, you can actually just one-shot a turret. So if you have an Infinity Orb, definitely try to utilize this like perks that Fizz have, because I don't know why Fizz W just deals so much damage on turrets. You could actually destroy a turret so fast, so you could actually like split push. If your team is fighting, you're not confident, you don't think they could win, try split push, because you could actually like destroy 2 to 3 turrets easily. Maybe you could got to their inhib before the team fight even like happens, or before the team fight even ends. You could actually already finish their inhibited turret and you could force them to make a recall, so you would actually win the team fight, because now they're retreating. You can keep pushing. When you're pushing, they're trying to defend. They would actually separate their teammates. They would like call 1 or 2 person to go defend the turrets, and now you have like full members in a team fight. You could actually engage in a team fight more easier compared to just fight a whole full team fight, because we all know before a team fight starts, both of the teams are usually like dragging out. They're just, you know, wandering around like, should you attack, should you not, like they're just waiting for the first person to do the damage or engage. Now for the 5th item, pretty easy. If the enemy has a lot of tank and you don't seem to do a lot of damage against them, just go for Void Staff. More magic penetration. You would do more damage if there is a lot of tank. But if there's not a lot of tank, they go for squishy comms. Like even if their supports are like Nami or Lux, their top lanes are like Riven or Akali, then they pretty much don't have any tanks. You could either go for, the 4th item you go for a Moralican, then the 5th item you should go for an Infinity Orb. If your 4th item go for Infinity Orb, then the 5th item go for a Moralican. Or you could actually go for a Liandry's Torment. You get extra health, and with the passive that Fizz have, you know, dealing like extra burn damage after you auto attack one champion, you could go for that. And the last item, of course, you could go for a GA or a Gunblade. If you try to play more safe, you could go for a GA just so you don't die so fast in a team fight. But if you don't want to play safe, or you're doing really well, you're carrying, just go for a Gunblade for the extra damage. Now that's it. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like, and if you want to see more Wall Rift content from me, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.